as good citizens, should cooperate with the police and give as much information as you have on these criminals. It is the right thing, it is the honorable thing, it is the good thing to do.
We join the Prime Minister's impassioned plea. Don't remain silent on wrongs being committed in your community. Call Crime Stop at 311 and help us reclaim our island from the grips of criminals. I'm Adrian Atkins, and your favorite magazine program starts right now.
We are men with a message, and the youth them need to hear this.
We know everything about thug life.
Been there, done that.
Prison and a nice place, stay in school.
Serious thing we I tell you.
And a joke thing this.
They can't tell me about hungry.
That's no excuse. Leave the badness alone.
Nobody narrate you.
Them just afraid of you. Live positive, remember.
A gang is a dead end.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Monday, November 12. The government is finalizing the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Bill, which will be brought to the House of Representatives shortly. Speaking in Parliament last Tuesday, Culture and Gender Minister Olivia Grange said a report and recommendations with inputs from different stakeholder groups will be tabled in the House before the end of November. She emphasized that sexual harassment is not a simple matter, but a very serious crime that militates against the desired level of peace, harmony, and happiness in the country.
We have been clear that we need stronger laws to deal with gender-based violence, particularly sexual offenses. For this reason, we reconvened the Joint Select Committee under the chairmanship of Minister Chuck to review laws relating to violence against women, violence against children, the elderly, and persons living with disabilities.
Minister Grange said successful prosecutions will not only depend on investigators and the justice system, but will also depend on people taking a stand and using the mechanisms put in place to deal with the problem.
The laws will only be deterrents if people believe that they will be enforced. People who like to abuse women and children will think again if they know that they will be caught and punished.
Meanwhile, Minister Grange says the establishment of the first state-run national shelter to assist abused women is far advanced.
In the last few months, we completed acquisition of the property, and we are transforming it into a center to accommodate survivors of gender-based violence and their children. It will also offer basic necessities, counseling, and other forms of support.
The gender minister says key stakeholder groups will be engaged for the implementation of the National Strategic Action Plan for the Elimination of Gender-Based Violence. This will be done during the 2-week observance of International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, starting November 25.
We will use this observance to undertake significant outreach activities in communities that are associated with high levels of violence.
And still on gender-based violence, Jamaicans are being encouraged to learn about the various forms of abuse, as well as the support systems available to those who are affected. That call came from Director of Policy and Research at the Bureau of Gender Affairs, Sharon Robinson. She says a 2016 Women's Health Survey showed that emotional violence was the #1 form of violence in intimate partner relationships, followed by physical and sexual violence.
In most cases, when people speak to violence, they talk about physical violence and sexual violence, but the results showed that emotional violence, name-calling, labeling, belittling, demeaning, attaching stigma and discrimination and so on, was the #1 form of violence involved in an intimate partner relationship where there's violence.
Ms. Robinson was speaking on Wednesday at a JIS think tank session. She's advising persons to connect with churches, community groups, and service providers who will have access to services that may help them. In other news, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security says it will be strengthening its public-private partnership to improve the soft skills among youth to facilitate the job market. Portfolio Minister Shahini Robinson says this is necessary to fill the gap indicated in the 2017 National Labor Market Survey among students leaving high school with no work experience.
Soft skills are the personal attributes, personality traits, inherent social cues, and communication skills needed for success on the job. Soft skills include possessing a good attitude, the use of initiative, creative thinking, teamwork. If as a country we are going to improve our productivity, then we have to improve on all of these.
Minister Robinson was addressing the ministry's second roadshow in St. Anne recently. It's dubbed Labor Department and You. The ongoing roadshows provide information and feedback on the job market, industrial relations, occupational safety and health, efforts to eliminate child labor, as well as local and overseas employment programs. The next stop will be in Kingston later this month, with St. James and St. Thomas next year. Another Brain Builder Center has been opened, this time in St. Anne. The $43 million renovated Edward Douglas Early Childhood Development Center will now strategically cater to cognitive learning challenges among infants. The facility, which was opened recently, was financed by the Culture, Health, Arts, Sports and Education Chase Fund. Education Minister Senator Ruel Reid encouraged parents to work with the school to ensure the holistic development of their children.
Nothing beats a good start. And this must be an impetus to ensure that you all parents value this investment. Get your children fully enrolled and support them. Parents, remember that you remain parents. And so the school must do its part, but you must partner with the school to make sure the children maximize the best outcomes from these facilities.
The school now has 3 additional classrooms, bathrooms for teachers and students, a kitchen, a lunchroom, an office, and a sick bay. The facility was also equipped with a play area and perimeter fencing. And finally, the call to support local farmers and businesses was once again made by the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries. Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Andreen Collins, reiterated that eating more local products will increase production and thereby reduce the high food import bill.
Eating Jamaican, though, is not just about reducing our trade deficit. However, it is also about contributing to the development and growth of our economy through, for example, the diversification of our farms, a greater focus on value-added products, as well as micro and small business development.
Ms. Collins was speaking at the launch of the 15th staging of the Eat Jamaica Month on Wednesday. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
It's always beautiful in Jamaica. Everything usually be green and pretty. We have beautiful water. Temperature that is normal temperature. The water never cold. We've been into business for about 13 years. JUSC-COOL. Just cool. It's spelled with 3 0. We make 3 different types of pudding. We make potato, we make cornmeal, and we make total. This is the cornmeal, okay? That's actually almost the last process. What he's gonna do now, he's gonna put a gel on top. Within no time, he has to take it off because the gel give it a nice taste. We have people like Shelley and Fraser came here. We have, you could name the biggest artists, Shabba Ranks, name them all. Being the Man, they all come here and buy their pudding. This is what we grew up on. Now, when the people come to Jamaica, everybody, as soon as they land off the plane, this is where they come. They want to taste this pudding because it brings them back to the old days. The long time days when they was kids growing up and they used to sit on the fire and watch their mama, their grandmother bake the pudding. We try not to change off our roots, we try to keep it that way. And not only that, we have a lot of love because we're all about love.
We've been on the road in recent weeks, bringing you breathtaking sights and points of interest across our blessed island. Take a look at what we've uncovered in the Garden Parish.
It was at this part of our rock back in 1494 that Columbus first set sights on Jamaica, hence the name Discovery Bay. The new occupiers of the land mimicked the locals and stayed on the coastline, creating Sevilla La Nueva.
We started with a history lesson, so please indulge me as I take you on a tour of scintillating St. Anne. Before the North-South Highway made it possible to travel from Kingston to St. Anne in 50 minutes, you had this road. Though not as popular as before, the Mount Russell Bypass is still a viable route to get to St. Anne. And between you and me, this is the more scenic route to the Garden Parish. This rest stop at Fate's Pen is all you'll need to refuel on your way to Monique. It's home to two prominent training institutions, both of which have a shared history. It may not look like much now, since it was razed by fire in 2010. But this building was a mainstay around these parts. Built in 1890, the Monique Hotel was a rest stop for visitors to the Jamaican Great Exhibition of 1891. By World War II, it was taken over by the military, and in 1956, it became a college that also bore the name of the town. The old hotel is also linked to another location that's just off the main road, round the bend, at a place called Swamp.
I remember hearing from my late mother, who used to come down here in the 1930s, long before I was born, and she would go and water ski on the Monique Lakes. I mean, that's how high the water was in those days, and Monique was in fact a tourism center for Jamaica in those days. They would have tours from the hotel, which is now the college, and they'd go to the Monique Lakes and water ski.
In 2005, the lake swelled and engulfed parts of the community. Today, only 2 pools remain to tell the story of what happened back then, and life has seemingly returned to normal. Further down the road, round the bend, is Blue Hole at Riverhead in the parish. You can take a dip, cool off on its banks, or visit the nearby garden over the bridge. But be careful, this serene pool is 60 feet deep. This Blue Hole River is said to be the starting point of the White River. Locals say the water flows underground and reappear on the coast in Ocearias. We get back on the main road and head to Walkerswood, where Bromley Pen is located. This 18th century beauty is made of wood with cut stone foundation and has a wraparound veranda and sash windows. It's a private property, so we asked and were granted a tour by its owner.
Bromley was built, I believe, around the 1720s, and it's been converted over the years by different owners. My great-grandfather bought it they say in the 1890s. He was a banana man from St. Mary, but he went into cattle, and it's been a cattle property. And not a great house. Historically, they're all called pens. A lot of people don't want to have their house called a pen. Bromley was really just a little 2-bedroom house, and it's just been added on to. The veranda you see behind me was put on by my great-grandfather. But so we still have cattle here. but we started in the 70s Walker Caribbean Foods, a jerk seasoning business. Recently, we have turned Bromley into a yoga retreat. It's become very popular, and we run yoga retreats from Thanksgiving time in America through until about May, June. We close down for hurricane season.
Here at Walker's Wood, we produce jams, jellies, and of course our traditional jerk seasoning. We have sauces, barbecue sauces, savory sauces, jerk sauces.
We could not come to St. Anne without visiting Fern Gully. This 3-mile stretch is home to over 300 species of fern, many of which are endemic to the island. If you follow the road, you'll get to Ocho Rios, the island's tourism mecca. There's lots to do, so be sure you go out there and enjoy this amazing parish.
For those of you who want more information on the Jamaica Defence Forces Monique Training Camp, watch this.
Military presence in Monique would have started from as far back as military in Jamaica. Monique was a strategic location between Kingston, Spanish Town, and Ocho Rios, so it ended up being a stopover location for many of the troops as they were patrolling the area. During the Maroon Wars of the 18th century, Monique was one of the 11 barracks that were established for the troops to stop over as they were encountering a lot of diseases and deaths due to the long patrol that they had to do on the interior of the island while they were facing the Maroons in guerrilla-type warfare, which was very foreign and new to them. So the uniforms they were wearing was not suited for the tropical climate, so it was very hard for them traveling, if you can imagine, from Kingston into Trelawney area. So they established barracks for close monitoring of the Maroon towns, and Monique was one of those that was established. By the 19th century, the Monique Hotel was established in preparation for the Great Exhibition of 1891 in Kingston, and that hotel actually housed several of the troops straight up to the 1940s when it was passed over to changed ownership and again used as a formal hotel. In the 1940s, it was used during the World War II period by foreign regiments, some of which you can see along the wall of badges at Newcastle, the Winnipeg Grenadiers, the Argyle and Sutherland Highlanders, and the Brockville Rifles. Many of these regiments would have moved between Monique and Kingston, where in Monique they did training exercises.
Monique continued to be a training ground for troops throughout the centuries. The Jamaica Defence Force came into being in 1962, and the Monique Training Camp became the home of the 2nd Jamaica Regiment in 1979. And since 2009, it has been the JDF's Combat Support Battalion base.
The Jamaican Military Museum and Library is open to the general public, and we look forward to sharing our history with you.
Catch up on your history at the museum's Up Park Camp Kingston location, Wednesdays through Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
I love my children and I will do anything to protect them. So that's why, as a mom and as a doctor, I made sure that my daughter got the HPV vaccine to protect her from cervical cancer later in life when she becomes a woman. The HPV vaccine is very safe and effective.
I was afraid of the injection at first, but I got it and it really wasn't that bad after all.
If there was something you could do to protect your child, wouldn't you do it? Protect our next generation. Ensure that your daughter gets the HPV vaccine today.
Don't wait. Vaccinate against cervical cancer. A message from the Ministry of Health. Human papillomavirus Hpv is a major public health concern on the island. Nearly 50% of women diagnosed with cervical cancer caused by Hpv die from the disease. Hear how the Ministry of Health is working to lower the growing number of Hpv-related deaths.
Globally, cervical cancer is the second most common type of cancer in women, with over 85% occurring in developing countries. Every year, 528,000 new cases are diagnosed, and there are approximately 270,000 deaths. By 2050, without any intervention, the number of diagnosed cases of cervical cancer is expected to increase to 1 million per year, with approximately 90% of the deaths occurring in developing countries like ours. A major factor is the human papillomavirus Hpv, of which there are approximately 200 types that infect epithelia, or skin tissue. At least 14 types of the human papillomavirus have been found to cause cancer of the cervix. Types 16 and 18 are responsible for 70% of cancers of the cervix, which is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in Jamaica. The virus can be transmitted through skin-to-skin contact, from mother to child at birth.
Current estimates indicate that every year, just under 400 women are diagnosed with this disease, with approximately 185 dying from the disease, with the majority of deaths occurring in women between the ages of 40 and 64 years of age.
A prevalence study conducted in Jamaica in 2010 revealed that the overall prevalence of any type of HPV infection was 54%. Cancer-causing HPV types were detected in 34.9% of the women, and HPV types 16 and 18 were found in 10.5% of the general population and in 71% of women with abnormal pap smears. This reality has prompted the Jamaican government to take the initiative to prevent cervical cancer through the introduction of the bivalent human papillomavirus Hpv vaccine.
The World Health Organization, WHO, recommends that HPV vaccines be included in national immunization programs as a core strategy for primary prevention against cervical cancer. WHO states, Mr. Speaker, that HPV vaccination for girls ages 9 to 14 years is the most cost-effective public health measure against this disease.
More than 70 countries around the world, including more than 20 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, have already introduced the vaccine. Several studies and monitoring by the World Health Organization, WHO Global Advisory Committee on Vaccine Safety, proved that HPV vaccination is safe and works extremely well, decreasing the number of HPV infections and related precancers. The bivalent HPV vaccine, introduced by the Ministry of Health in schools at grade 7 to girls ages 9 to 14, provides for 90 to 100% protection against HPV types 16 and 18. The vaccine is offered free of cost.
Bear in mind too, by the way, the cost to administer one of these vaccines, for us, the cost is somewhere in the region of $7-8 US. If you go into the private sector, you're looking at anywhere from $11,000 to $15,000. So it's not inexpensive.
This vaccine is not mandatory, and beneficiaries received opt-out forms for parents and guardians to give or refuse permission for their girl child to receive the vaccine.
We can take it that the indication, if anything, is that they want this. They identify with this. I remember one girl indicated that her mother actually called her aunt, who is a nurse, for advice. So that spells good. It says that persons are prepared to consult, get information, and then make informed decisions. And so that is going well.
Approximately 22,500 girls were targeted for the vaccine's introduction in 2017, with each girl needing 2 doses given 6 months apart for full protection.
Generally speaking, the process has gone smoothly.
The school-based strategy for implementation seeks to facilitate greater access to the targeted population. This covers the cost for social mobilization and communication, cold chain equipment, training and sensitization, and procurement of vaccine and vaccination supplies. And this disease prevention strategy will save the government millions. The Ministry of Health estimated that annual cost for the program after introduction will be 73.3 million Jamaican dollars.
In Jamaica, the estimated cost is of the just under 400 cases annually, Mr. Speaker, is some $274 million. I should point out that this figure is only for radiotherapy and does not include diagnosis and chemotherapy.
And for the individual, not just the emotional and physical trauma caused by this cancer is removed, but the financial burden.
In the United States, cost on diagnosis is approximately some 15,000, just under $16,000 US. If the patient survives for a year, this rate goes up to approximately $30,000 US.
Despite vaccination, persons will still need to do their routine pap smear to check for any threat or signs of the cancer, as the key to effective treatment, if it should occur, is early detection. For more information or to have your concerns answered, you can call the Ministry of Health's toll-free line 1-888-1-LOVE or 1-888-663-5683. Also email hpvinfo@moh.gov.jm. You can also visit the website moh.gov.jm as well as social media channels.
And that's how we close out Jamaica Magazine, but only for today. We return tomorrow, same place, round about the same time, with another exciting program. If you can't wait, just visit our website or YouTube channel. Our pages on all the major social media sites are also informative, so be sure to add us to your list. On behalf of the entire team here at the JIS, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.